Hi, it's Bumble. Welcome back to my channel. So the reason I watched this, it's kind of funny. I'm recording this in October, where I'm watching and recording pretty much like only Halloween movies and stuff. I've been watching SNL. I've been doing this for like the past like year or so, year or two. I don't know how long it's been of like watching SNL episodes in order. And I've seen this movie before. It's been a while though. And I got to one of the 2011 episodes where Jason Segel goes on there to like promote the Muppet movie, this one that had like just come out at the time. And the Muppets are there, and I was like, oh, cool, I should probably go watch that. So that's why I'm watching this, which works out fine anyway, because I remember going to see this when I was little. A lot of the movie, like the music and stuff especially, I still remembered very clearly. And this movie was like my introduction to the Muppets when I was a kid, and then I got into like more Muppet stuff when I was older. And then funnily enough, I was sad there was no more Muppet movies or like really Disney doing anything with the Muppets. But there's a sequel, and I've never seen the sequel. I don't know how I haven't seen the sequel. I've known it's existed for years. I guess I've just never gotten around to it. And one of my friends was saying like how amazing it was, especially the music is supposed to be like all bangers, and I'm like, all right, I'll take you up on that. So I wanted to watch this first. I mean, they're not completely connected in that the human characters are in it or anything. Like the human characters from this, I don't think Walter really is supposed to have much of a role, but he's like the main character of this one. But the Muppets are there and stuff, so I'll keep watching it. But yeah, this is good. This is a classic. It's kind of funny because I feel like I've been watching so many movies and things specifically from like 2011 2012 lately, and it's not even like I'm doing it on purpose. I just keep finding all these things to watch, and it's just been making me think like, damn, there's so many good movies that came out that year. But this is a fun one. I've seen it before, so this isn't like my reactions for a first viewing, but there are things that I forgot about, and I'm pretty much just gonna like read off my notes and stuff. I'll go from there. I was enjoying this so much, I wasn't originally taking notes, and then I thought, okay, if I'm probably gonna have some opinions on the sequel I want to talk about, might as well like make a video on this one too. So, the part of the plot with this is that Gary, one of the human characters, and Walter, who's a Muppet, they're siblings. When I was younger and I watched this, I just, assumed that Walter was adopted, but there is the other possibility of like, is one of the parents like a Muppet or something? Did someone have relations with a Muppet? Because I don't think we see a bunch of childhood flashbacks. I don't remember seeing both the parents on screen, or maybe they were there. I remember seeing a blonde woman, I think, marking their height, so assuming that that's the mom. The mom's a human, is the dad a Muppet, especially because Walter is, how there's like Muppets that are like animals, there's Muppets that are like creatures and whatever, and then there's ones like Walter that are just human looking and stuff. Like there's even a point where Gary, during the very iconic Man or Muppets song, has like a Muppet like doppelganger or whatever, like a little Muppet version of himself, and it's just it's the Muppet is just some guy, like it looks like him. It's like his like Muppet Sona or whatever. No, I have a comment related to that, but it's like once we get to that part of the story. Sorry, I love that song and that scene so much. I can't believe it. I think it actually almost won like a Grammy or something. I don't know if it did or not, but it should have. But yeah, it's just funny to me that this Muppet Walter is like specifically one of the like, human looking Muppets, except that he doesn't have a nose. He's just a little guy. I actually really like him as a character. I have more notes on him later, but I also think it's kind of cool, the idea, how Muppets exist in the human world, and I like that they're treated as just normal people along with everything else. I feel like sometimes where it's like there's non-human things in a non-human world, like puppets or just whatever, they're usually treated as like an other or like a second class citizens or something. But like not just in this movie, but in other Muppet stuff where there's Muppets, the whole thing of like Muppets and humans living together or interacting or whatever, people, they take the Muppets seriously. Some of them are like in charge of human stuff and whatever. So I always think that's cool. But I like the idea with this of like a Muppet that's raised alongside human and is like raised basically like a human, I guess, like not treated as like a puppet or a Muppet or anything. Walter's just just like another little guy and stuff. It's just that he happens to be like 3 feet tall and that's it. So Walter's really like the main character. Mary and Gary, I just find it funny their names rhyme, are like the how there's always human characters in every Muppet movie and stuff. They're not like the best of like the human characters we have before. I feel like that kind of belongs to me when I think of human characters in Muppet movies to Tim Curry's character in Muppet Treasure Island, and then Michael Caine in Muppet Christmas Carol. I like that they're kind of, I can't remember which is which in my head right now, of like one of them acts like a Muppet surrounded by other Muppets and the other one is like treating the Muppets like they're humans, because they're both fun in that movie, but in those movies respectively, like Tim Curry's character just feels like another one of the Muppets, but like Michael Caine being so serious in that role as Scrooge, it's so good. I need to watch that movie again, but I have to like wait to do that once it's like Christmas or something. But yeah, these two are sort of fun. They're like very basic characters, but they work. I mean, Gary's the only one that gets like character development or anything because he's like Walter's brother, and his whole thing is he has to choose like, does he continue to stay with his brother or like pick his fiance, girlfriend or whatever instead. And at the end he and Walter goes through a similar thing too, of like, does he stay with like his human family or does he get to join the Muppets? They're going through like the same arc and stuff. And Mary's just there to be like the love interest, and so like plot wise she doesn't really do too much, but she's fun. They still make like a fun duo. I'm still glad that she's there anyway. Like she has some good dialogue with Gary and stuff. I have a note about her. Where is it? Give me a second, because I thought I should like talk about her character first and then oh yeah, she has a song. She has like one solo song in this, which no, she shares it with Miss Piggy. It's called Me Party. It used to annoy me when I was younger because I swear it's been dormant in my head since the movie came out. It's actually kind of a bop. It just makes me sad because like it reminded me of the movie Enchanted. I think that was like the first movie I had ever seen Amy Adams in. I just mostly remember a lot of her movies from like the 2008 2012 time period, I guess. I feel like she was in like a lot of things like that, or I mostly think of like this one, Enchanted, which I'm glad she's in Enchanted because even in this she totally gives off like a Disney princess sort of vibe. I think just because her character here is supposed to be very like nice and sweet and stuff, and just seeing her with all that like energy and stuff and how she sings, it totally, I mean she played a Disney princess. She got to play Giselle in Enchanted and stuff. I've never seen Disenchanted the sequel, by the way, but I've heard it's kind of bad, so I'm just gonna pretend it doesn't exist. But yeah, she plays the character Mary in like a very sweet and wholesome way. I mean, I know she's been in stuff like after that and whatever, after that like time period I mentioned, but I really missed that like part of her career. Or like I just had finished watching the Night at the Museum movies, I think like last month, where she was Amelia Earhart. That's like I think the other big role I associate with, but I feel like she was good for this role of being like this sweet person that's going along with all this Muppet stuff. And I like that you know, sometimes there's like girlfriend characters and stuff that will get kind of tired of like things in the plot or whatever, but she's like, even though her whole thing is she wants Gary to like marry her and stuff and to spend time with him, because the whole reason the plot starts is because the three of them go on a trip to LA or something. She, you know, never complains of like having to be, you know, with the Muppets. I mean, she just mentioned to Gary at one point of like, hey, I was hoping we can like hang out tomorrow, and he's like, no, I have to like stay here at the theater and help, but mostly like, you know, because of like Walter or whatever, and she's disappointed, and she does leave Gary for a bit, and then she's the one that does suggest like, hey, let's go to the show, you know, the Muppets are struggling and stuff. But like for the most part, you know, she's happy to like put her vacation plans on hold to help the Muppets, like even though she's not like doesn't seem like a huge fan as much of like how Gary and Walter, you literally see a montage of them growing up watching like recordings of the Muppet Show and stuff. I like that she's like just as happy to be there and wants to help them out and stuff, and I think that's neat. And Jason Segal's character Gary is also kind of fun. Like I said, he goes through a similar character arc as Walter, which is why I think they both have the song Man or Muppet, which I'll talk more about this with the Man or Muppet thing. I don't know if he sings, actually. I know Amy Adams does. Like I said, she's literally in like a Disney princess movie. I'd want to see him singing more stuff though. I don't know if he has, because like he has a couple of like songs in this movie too, and I think he has a good voice. I thought the two of them sounded well together. Anyway, let me continue with this. The other human important character, well no, there's like two more. I'm just kind of getting the human characters out of the way. The villain of this movie, I think he works because he's forgettable in that he's like a stereotypical villain. He's like a stereotypical billionaire. Like his whole thing is he wants to buy the Muppet studio or something. Or no, he already owns the deed for it for some reason. And the whole thing is like the Muppets can save their studio if they get $10,000 or something. But if they don't, he says he's gonna like quote unquote turn it into a Muppet museum, but in reality he's going to dig it up to get oil, and he's just very silly, you know. He's so like stereotypical. I don't even remember the guy's name. I do like that the movie makes fun of him for this though. Like they don't try to treat him as like a serious character or anything. Like every time he does like an evil villain laugh, he just literally says the words maniacal laughter over and over again. You get to see him throughout the movie, and he has like a little goon squad or whatever. There's these like fake versions of the Muppets called the Muppets, and he wants to make them into a thing. I just find their existence kind of funny, though I find the pig character that's supposed to be like the Miss Piggy one is kind of annoying, honestly. And then he has these two like actual like Muppet characters. I thought both of them were gonna do like a heel face turn and join the Muppets, but only one of them does. I know they're both like Muppet characters though. One of them is a giant bear I don't remember the name of. He does mention a line of like, oh, at one point of like, oh, maybe our boss really is like the bad guy, you know, but I think he stays on his side or whatever, but he doesn't seem like evil or anything, and he has some funny lines. And then Mr. Deadly is the other one, and I like the whole thing. Like he gets one important scene where he actually literally like I think pushes the villain off of a roof or something, which he doesn't die from, but he yeah, but and I like that Mr. Deadly, you know, says like, oh, just because I have like a stereotypically evil face and British accent or whatever, which I always find that so funny with like British villains where they have like a certain type of accent and somehow it just makes them sound a little more evil because, you know, it just sounds like kind of classy or whatever. I just find that funny because I'm pretty sure that's like the character's whole thing or whatever. It's like he's supposed to look scary, but then, you know, he has this moment where he's like, I'm not a Muppet despite like my features or whatever, I'm a Muppet or something, and then he joins the Muppets and you don't really see him again or whatever. But I thought that was kind of funny. It's like a one-time thing. And then with the human villain, he ends up getting he makes fun of the Muppets. Like, he did some stuff to try to destroy their telethon, and he wins, technically. Like, he wins the theater, and it's treated as like a big sad moment, and then the Muppets go outside and they realize they have a bunch of fans, and then Gonzo ends up hitting him with a bowling ball to the stomach, which felt kind of nice, actually, because, like, what kind of evil person goes to, like, yell and make fun of the Muppets, you know, to their face? Come on, guy. But then you see in the credits, and it doesn't actually, I think, take away anything from, you know, in the story the Muppets don't get their theater back, because in the credits you see a newspaper thing where it says that he did give them back their theater and their rights and stuff. So at the end the Muppets end up fine. It's just funny to me, like, that, you know, they get their theater back at the end of this movie, and then the next movie is Muppets Most Wanted, where they don't end up using that theater, I think, at all. I haven't seen the movie, though. I think Kermit gets sent to, like, a Russian gulag or something. That's why I'm like, what the hell even is that movie? But yeah, the villain does get punished, but it's one of those things, like, only in the credits or whatever. But I do actually like that the Muppets didn't get their theater back, like, within the story. I think it kind of worked with, like, the lesson that was going on and stuff. And then the fourth one, it's more minor. Rashida Jones ends up playing this, like, TV executive character. Like, there's a bunch of celebrity cameos and stuff in this thing, which I find funny. I want to talk about that in a bit. But hers is the most important, where she, you know, she's also, like, a pretty stereotypical character, where she's, like, this TV executive busybody person who doesn't, like, she doesn't hate the Muppets or anything. She says, like, she grew up with them or whatever, and she's like, okay, I'll let you guys have this show, whatever. And she doesn't really believe in them, and then as they're getting close to their goal, she's kind of just ends up being on their side, which is pretty nice. And then I mentioned there's a bunch of celebrity cameos, which then kind of reminded me this movie was from 2011, not just on the people picked for it, but, like, how young some of them look, where I was like, oh yeah, this is an older movie. Like, Selena Gomez is there at one point, where she looks kind of the same age or whatever, or, like, pretty young as, like, she did, you know, when she was still doing, like, Disney Channel stuff. It's just kind of funny. It reminded me, like, oh yeah, this movie is, like, 10 years old. Like, no, this movie is, like, 14 years old or whatever, and I forgot about that because I've been watching Only Murders in the Building, where her character is, like, and she does look like she's, like, 30 or something. So I'm like, oh yeah, time passing is a thing. I saw Neil Patrick Harris in there at one point. I was hoping he'd have more of a role. The celebrity host, one of my favorite scenes in the movie, they end up getting is Jack Black. Jack Black's role in this movie is actually so funny to me, where they end up kidnapping him, and I love the part where and they're it's kind of like a parody thing on, like, ninjas or something, at the part where they kidnap him. I think it even lists the characters' names in, like, Japanese or something at one point, where Kermit berates the Muppets for kidnapping Jack Black, where Fozzie says something like, oh, which is more important, saving the Muppets or slightly inconveniencing Jack Black, and Kermit's like, inconvenience Jack Black, come on, Fozzie, or whatever. That's not the exact line, but it's, like, along those lines. And then one of the characters, I think it's Pepe, the wait, no, was it the rat or the lobster? I think it's the lobster. Yeah, because Rizzo's the rat, who says something of, like, come on, Kermit, celebrities, not people, or whatever. And Jack Black spends the entire movie tied up and held hostage by the Muppets and stuff, and he never gets untied or, like, actually gets to talk to them normally or anything. I find that funny and a little sad, because Jack Black would be perfect to be, like, a host on the Muppet Show. That's the thing that was, like, a bit of a bummer with this movie, is there's so many celebrity cameos, and I'm sure, like, I saw Sarah Silverman at one point too. She has, like, a small role, and I'm guessing some of those people were probably, there's got to be at least some of them that probably grew up with, like, the original Muppet Show or something. It made me a little sad, because there's, like, several people, like, specifically, like, Jack Black and Neil Patrick Harris, where I thought, damn, you know, if the show was continuing, they would have made good Muppet Show hosts. And it's interesting with this movie, where it specifically has, like, a lot of references to, like, the Muppet Show. Like, that's basically what they do for the telethon anyway. and they reference the first Muppet movie. Like, they literally have some of the plot of it, of like, okay, we're gonna go and do a montage of like collecting all the Muppets and stuff. Gotta bring the gang back together and whatever. And I get it. And I think that's kind of sweet of having that many references to it and stuff. Like, there's even one part where you see pictures on the wall of various Muppet Show hosts, including Julie Andrews. I really liked her episode. I'd actually watched the Muppet Show, the original Muppet Show, for a while. It was pretty fun. But that's just funny to me because Muppets... Okay, first off, with the Muppet movies, I found out, like, in terms of, like, the official, like, theatrical ones, not the ones made for TV, there's only, like, 8 of them. Like, there isn't really that many. But most of them are from the 80s, and the last, like, one before this one was Muppets in Space. That's from 1999. And there's the whole thing of... there's, like, another Muppet Show type show called Muppets Tonight. I think it was on like Disney Channel though, but that was from the 90s, you know. So it's weird, like the movie treats it of like, oh, the Muppet Show, the original. Oh, hold on a sec. Okay, sorry. My mom, it's always funny when one of my parents comes in here because they'll hear me talking. They know I do these videos and stuff, but they don't know if I'm in the middle of talking. I always pause or I mute my mic sometimes when I hear someone coming in. That's why sometimes these are a little abrupt, and they'll like very gently open the door and not say anything, and I'm like, it's paused, we're good, you know. I appreciate that though, because I don't edit the videos. I don't have the website. I don't think I have access to the website I used to edit on, so can't edit people out anyway. But yeah, that's the human character. Oh right, I was talking about Muppets Tonight. Yeah. So my point with that was that, like, in terms of TV and movies, like this movie treats it like the Muppets haven't been a thing since like the 70s or whatever, but you know, it's really more like they stopped making like big Muppet things since like the 90s. And even after that, there's like TV movies and other things. Like there's the Wizard of Oz one that I watched and I liked it. It's kind of funny. That was one of the last videos I'd made on my other channel, was talking about that movie. And I thought it was just going to be like, whatever, you know. And then I got like a ton of comments and views of that. Apparently people really like the Muppet Wizard of Oz movie. But I thought it was fun. Maybe I'll check out other made for TV Muppet. There's like a whole world of like Muppet things to explore, honestly. Like I want to watch that ABC The Muppets show potentially in like a couple months, or I literally found a YouTube video that was on Muppet classic theater. It's probably like a silly thing for kids or whatever, but hey, I'm gonna check that out too, you know. But my point is, like, I mean, Muppet stuff I think has definitely slowed down, and hasn't really been anything big, but there's still, you know, stuff going on. But that's the one thing that kind of bothers me a little with this movie, is like it treats it as if like it's only the Muppet Show, or it's only things from like the 70s or whatever, and it's like there's other stuff. I've heard Muppets Tonight is pretty good. I'm actually planning to start watching that soon, probably after Muppets Most Wanted. Oh, one more thing. I've heard there's rumors of like a new Muppets like show coming out. I think Seth Rogen's the one that's making that possible. I hope that ends up being a thing. I think that would be pretty cool, especially with like the guest stars and stuff. Okay, let's see. And then a lot of my notes are just kind of whatever, really. I like the whole thing of like Gary, Walter, Gary, Walter, and Mary's, like you start to see it even towards the beginning of the movies, the whole thing of like Mary just wants Gary to focus on her a bit, and Walter's happy with the Muppets, but sometimes kind of worries about his brother, and Gary's someone who's like thinks that Walter needs him, but then once Walter kind of starts getting involved with the Muppets, you know, he seems to be finding his own person. It's just like treated as like this lesson of growing up and stuff that I think is really neat. And then Walter's whistling talent, I didn't even notice it the first time I watched the movie, because his big moment in this is he's the one that tries to get them the money at the end of like to save the theater, but they need like one last act, and it's Walter's whistling ability, which I remember when I first watched, I thought like, I mean, it's good. He sounds like a songbird when he whistles, and can definitely hit those high notes. It's great. But I always thought like that's such like a random thing of like, oh, okay, he's like a really good whistler or whatever. But no, it's like kind of foreshadowed. You literally see it throughout the movie. Like the first time it happens is when he's cleaning up. There's like a cleaning up the theater sequence. That's when I started taking my notes. But then there's other times where he's alone and he like whistles and it sounds like really good or whatever. And I think it's interesting because it's treated as like he doesn't know what his talent is, and then he finds it. But it's through seeing this, it's more of like he had the talent all along, and his whole thing is like putting the Muppets on like a pedestal, you know. Okay, so I got interrupted again. I had to leave for a bit, and now I don't remember what I was saying. Sorry about that. I know I was talking about the Muppets and like they haven't been relevant since like the 90s, and the Muppet things I plan to watch. But yeah, hopefully Muppets Tonight is good. I don't think I'd do a review maybe I'd do like a general overview of that. But for sure I'll do one on Muppets Most Wanted to watch it tonight. Anyway, what else? Oh, there's a part where I was talking about Walter's whistling thing. Yeah, I like that it's like kind of shown throughout the movie. I didn't think anything of it the first time, but now that I know what his talent is, I'm like, oh, there's that iconic whistle and stuff. What else? There's a part I have like several notes about when they're cleaning the Muppet Theater and stuff, because that's kind of more of when the Muppets are all together. Because I'm glad that the part when they're like gathering all the Muppets and stuff, we have to track everybody down, that's so short, because that's actually the part I didn't really like in the original, of like them gathering all the like the song moving right along when they're getting everyone, and you know, getting your first introductions of like meeting the characters is kind of fun, but it's kind of a little skippable to me, to be honest, in the original. But here, so I'm glad it's short. Let's see. There's a part where the Swedish chef, he opens up a fridge and there's spoiled food in there, but they're like sentient Muppet food, and then his reaction is to burn them all and they'll die. It's kind of dark. That's one of the things about the Muppets to me that I think is part of why I feel like they're so fun to watch, and I don't ever feel like, oh, you know, this is, why am I watching this? This is for kids. I like never have that thought. I mean, it's Muppets I view as more like family friendly, but then there's times like this where it's like, yeah, they're versatile as characters, where they're like, you know, they even look family friendly and stuff, but they can get away with like darker jokes and stuff. And I never really think of it as like for specifically children or anything, especially when it comes to like the guest stars or some of the things that they parody. Like I still remember with the Muppet Show, there was an episode, I was so excited about it too, because I'd watched the musical at that point, where Joel Grey, I think, was the host, and he did the opening number to the musical Cabaret, which was super fun to see. But it's like, that is, you know, not a musical for children if you know the subject matter of that one. So having stuff, you know, being able to do stuff like that, or like they mentioned about SNL in this movie. Actually, wait, no, they don't. I'm sorry. That was the skit. The monologue that was advertising this movie, they mentioned about where the Muppets thought they were going to host SNL and they weren't, and they show this picture of one of the Muppet characters on there next to Gilda Ragnar, and they're like, hey, we've been on this show since the beginning, which is true, just still crazy to me, you know, as an example of like Muppets, you know, not being for children or whatever. They had a whole segment on there called like Sex, Murder, and Violence or whatever, which kind of sucked, honestly, and didn't really have any of the iconic Muppet characters. But, you know, that was a thing. And then there was the Muppet Show the same year. So stuff like that. I'm glad they can have these kind of jokes and stuff, but the Muppets still being family friendly. This feels like one of the more kind of, I was going to say even more family friendly Muppet movies, but I don't know. I think part of the reason I like this one, though, is that it's the one that's most similar to the original, you know, without like being a remake of it or anything, except it's more modern, basically. I think that's kind of part of the reason it works so well. I feel like I feel like the original movie is kind of gloomy, but I haven't seen it in a bit, so I don't honestly remember or if it feels like dated or anything. Probably with the people in it, the humans in it, I don't know. But I like that we're going back to the thing of the Muppets playing themselves rather than playing a character. Because like a lot of the other Muppet movies are super fun. You know, like they do parodies of things like the Christmas Carol, or, you know, the second movie is like the Caper one. There's one where they go to Manhattan. But I think this one and the Muppets from memory are the only ones where they're just themselves. They're the Muppets and stuff. And I think that's fun too, because I really like, I mean, I like Kermit playing characters, but I really just like Kermit as Kermit. Sometimes he pops up in like other things and it's kind of just whatever. But I feel like with this movie and with the original one, he's just purely, you know, himself and stuff. And Kermit's probably like my favorite of the Muppets, if I'm honest. I think I thought it was Gonzo, but like as I was watching this, I was thinking, I'm like, no, it's Kermit. And Walter kind of gives me a Kermit vibe a little bit. I'll explain it later. But part of the reason I like Kermit in this is he's like basically divorced from Miss Piggy, so they actually get several scenes together where they end up getting like back together as a couple. Or he has like some other conversations. Like I forget that besides Miss Piggy, I think the person he's like closest, you know, like I know that what's the name of I can't remember the name of the dog, the brown dog that plays the piano. I know he's like someone that Kermit's also close with, and Scooter is like his assistant and stuff. But I feel like Fozzie is the one that probably fits the most of like Kermit's friend and stuff, or like, because like if Piggy's the one that's like the romantic friend, I think Fozzie's the one that's like the regular friend. Like they get a conversation after the Muppets clean the theater that I think was pretty nice. Of just them being able to talk, and they're talking about like, are they going to be able to save the theater and stuff. I forgot to look into it because I know it was like a huge thing in one of the other Muppet movies. There's like a scene where they all ride bicycles, and I'm still wonder with that of like, how the hell do you pull that off? But I was thinking about that because there's several shots in this movie where you see the character's legs. Like Walter, I think, climbs up and down a couple of things. Kermit, you see standing up. There's a part with Piggy where Kermit's watching her, and she actually is standing up and she's walking, like she's actually moving her feet a little bit. It's not like huge steps or anything. And I'm like, how do they do that? Because, you know, most of the time you see them like just their upper half, or there's a part, you know, there's some parts where Walter is sitting and you see his legs, but it's like, okay, you know, the puppeteer's probably under like that couch or something, you know. But the parts where they're standing, I'm like, how do you do it, you know? Let's see. There's a lot of fun visual gags in this too. Like Kermit, I think it was a meme at one point where Walter first meets him and Kermit is holding his little briefcase or whatever, and he's surrounded by light, like treating him as if he's like God. And then the next shot shows this bus that's passing by with its lights on with a choir. I love little jokes like that in the Muppets, especially where it's like set up as something like that and then there's like a reason behind it. I think the other movie has a Kermit meme too, because that's the one about where Kermit's like actually the main character this time and he gets replaced by like an evil duplicate. You have that like Kermit to evil Kermit meme where they talk to each other with the hoods or whatever. I like just remember that existence. Or like the one with the sipping the tea. It's weird, there's so many like modern, not modern now, but modern then, like Kermit memes and stuff. But yeah, the light one, I remember as soon as I saw it in the movie, I'm like, oh, I know that format. What else? And then Piggy ends up joining them later on where she actually punches her replacement. And you know, I used to hate Miss Piggy when I was younger. I just found her really annoying. But I actually liked her in this one. There's like just enough of her where she doesn't feel like insufferable or anything. And I like that it's about her getting back together with Kermit, which is still wild to me, of like, you know, how they're treated as like a romantic couple, but then they end up breaking up a lot. I'm not kidding. When I started college, I had to do this project because like part of my graphic design classes, one of them was like, you have to make a book cover on like a famous couple, and one of the options was Kermit and Piggy, and I was like, okay, cool, I like the Muppets and stuff. I had to do freaking research for like a week or something. No, it wasn't like a week, it was like a couple days or whatever, of like Kermit and Miss Piggy, and going through all these articles and literally researching their backstory. And I came up with the idea that they were, you know, like toxic, and I represented that through my book cover. And it ended up looking like something in a fucking 50 Shades of Grey when I was done. It was oof. But yeah, I think about that now when the research I did and the cover. Gosh, I want to show the cover so bad, but like it has my name on it. I don't want to. But yeah, doing that research, I realized like, oh, they're like way more toxic than I thought they would be. They should not be a couple. But then the movie, especially this one, treats it, you know, as their relationship of like they should be together and they're sad without each other. Or I do have a soft spot, I'll be honest, for like the Muppets Go to Manhattan or whatever, where they end up getting married at the end, which I have some notes on that from here too. Okay, I want to talk about Walter and Kermit. I like Walter. He's just this anxious little guy that he's kind of like an audience stand-in, but also like his own character, I guess. Like he's a little more bland than some of the other Muppets, so I'm fine with him not being a regular character. Like this movie, it's about him and joining the Muppets, but after that, he's kind of more of like a background character probably. But he's just this anxious little guy that adores the Muppets. He's like a stand-in for us, the fans and stuff. And he goes from like putting the Muppets on a podium to like joining them, and also kind of being about like finding himself and stuff, of like choosing between becoming a Muppet or staying with his brother. And then Kermit in this, he's just he's, what was I going, I'm trying to think of the right word. I'm trying to think of like, why do I like Kermit as a character? He's just such a humble and honest character, really. I especially love the voice acting here as well. He just sounds so emotional and really just genuine with like the line delivery and stuff. Or like sometimes things, I feel like if it wasn't Kermit saying them, could be maybe even a little cheesy, but because it's Kermit, it just works. I mean, I feel that way about some of the things with the Muppets, especially like the end of this movie, but because it's the Muppets, they're just able to pull it off, you know. Like Steve Whitmire, I forgot that he's been replaced like as the time of this recording and stuff. I looked him up because I mean, I've listened to like Jim Henson as Kermit, like I've watched the original Muppet Show and like the older movies and stuff. I can't quite remember that off the top of my head, but it's just crazy to me that like I mentioned how this is the movie that like got me into the Muppets and stuff when I was younger, and then I'd go to look for other Muppet things or whatever. I think Steve's been the voice of Kermit not just for like how long I've been for my entire, I think it's been for like 20 years or something, but like it's from like 1990 to like 2017. So that's longer than I've been alive, but also for pretty much almost my entire life he's just been Kermit. Like every time I've heard Kermit, I didn't even think about that, and like other things too, like crossovers or whatever. So that like is the Kermit voice to me that I'm like used to and stuff. You know, but even more probably than Jim Henson's, but I think Jim Henson's is still my personal favorite as Kermit. He just is Kermit. But anyway, yeah, I really like Kermit here, where he can also sound like kind of sassy or like fed up with things sometimes. It's like a nice balance to me between like Kermit in the original Muppet movie and Kermit in like the Muppet Show, because like with the Muppet Show, like with the Muppet movie, he kind of has a similar vibe here of just being this guy with big dreams and making these friends and getting everyone together and stuff. He's like the glue of the Muppets. But then it's so funny watching the Muppet Show where he, you know, he's like the host, but you see a lot of scenes with him and Scooter, and he's just constantly, poor guy is just stressed out the entire show of like trying, because, you know, it's like the Muppets putting on these live shows and stuff of trying to get all the acts together and all the nonsense. It almost feels like skits in a way. It's like a regular part of the show of like Kermit and whatever bullshit he has to deal with of keeping the Muppets together, or stuff with the guest stars or whatever. He's not having fun on there. But it's a nice balance where, you know, he, even though he has to save the Muppets and stuff, he's not like super stressed out during this movie, and he also has his own stuff going on with Piggy. He's allowed to be his own character and everything. But just how in the world do you put so much emotion into these little movements and on it like what's basically a green piece, no, not trying to offend Kermit here, like a green piece of fabric, you know, like he has a very simple, like his mouth and stuff, and his eyes being like the ping pong balls and whatever. Or I mean, I'm assuming they're not now, but you know what I mean. It's like a very simple design compared to some other Muppets. But just the emotions that little green frog is able to convey, even outside of like his voice, because the voice definitely helps, of course, is just amazing to me. And I'm so used to them too. Like when he gets startled or scared, and it's probably my favorite of the Kermit expressions, where his face literally just like scrunches is the best word for it. And sometimes when he's like really freaked out, but it's not in this movie, I think, where it like looks like it crumples into a ball or whatever. It's just great. You know, I don't know why I'm getting almost emotional talking about it. I think it's just because Kermit's my personal favorite. I feel like that's probably like maybe a boring choice. I don't know, but it's just something about the little guy. But he just feels like a real person. I mean, that's part of the other reason the Muppets are like so special to me. I know I need to get back to the notes of this movie, but the Muppets, I mean, I know at the end of the day, they're puppets. There's like fantastic performers under there and stuff. But every time I see something with the Muppets, even if it's like a silly thing where it's like they appear on like a TV show, like a crossover thing or a commercial or whatever, I cannot help seeing them, even the way I talk about the Muppets, as if they're like real people in our worlds. I can't separate it. I don't know if it's just like the puppetry being that good, or just the way the characters are, or the fact that like in every piece of Muppet media, they're never treated as puppets. They're always treated as just, I mentioned like the second class citizen thing or whatever. They're never treated as that. They're just treated as like, they're people that also exist in the world. Like, yeah, they happen to be puppets or whatever, but they're never treated that way, even in their own world or whatever. And I think that's so cool. But yeah, I like his scenes with Piggy as well, and how he's the one that gives people pep talks. Like one of his pep talks to Walter towards the end about like believing in yourself or something, I think especially was really sweet. Okay, what else? Oh, I forgot to mention with the villain, one last thing. He has a rap. I didn't get to listen to it because I muted the volume, because I actually didn't want someone to know that I was watching the movie. I didn't want my mom to think like, oh, you've been watching movies all day or whatever, so I muted the volume at some parts of this movie. But the in movie subtitles were there. The villain has a rap. I didn't actually get to hear it myself, but it's about money, and it's just as silly as you thought it would be. And it pops out of nowhere. So I guess there's that. I don't know. Maybe it was good. I didn't listen to it. I mean, I kind of half expected him to have, like, if you're going to do a song, to have, like, an evil villain song, like a Disney villain song or whatever. Maybe that's the next movie, though. That would be cool. I have a soft spot for, like, big villain musical numbers or whatever. But this probably wasn't the right type of person to have it for, of, like, haha, typical stereotypical, like, evil CEO or whatever. They have to give it to someone with more, like, class. But yeah, it's sad and true, but true of everyone telling the Muppets in this movie. The whole thing they're told is like, you're not popular anymore. You haven't been relevant since the 70s. People don't care about you. And it's even sadder that like the sequel, you know, there's a sequel. It's a very different vibe from this movie from what I know about it. but there's no new movies or anything anymore. It's like they have this big hurrah of like the Muppets in like 2011, you know, of like, hey, people do remember the Muppets and stuff, but then they don't do anything with the Muppets, and it like kills me. It's kind of the same feeling I have, and it hurts with Oswald the Lucky Rabbit, where I think Epic Mickey was made around like even the same time as this movie, I'm assuming. Of, you know, the whole thing of like no one remembers you, Oswald, and he, you know, brought him into like the public consciousness or whatever, and Disney even buying Oswald I think all the way back in like 2006 or something, and they've done like literally they remade the game, which is cool. I still gotta play the remake at some point. I don't know if I'll like buy it on Switch or whatever, and the game has a sequel, kind of like with the Muppets, but again they don't do anything with the character, and I really like Oswald as a character. It makes me, I don't know, these kind of situations make me sad a bit. It is kind of funny because like with the trying to revive the character, the IP with like this movie or Epic Mickey, it's like those were my introductions of the characters. But that means it's doing a good job, you know, if it got me to care. But the fact that it's a story about that of like no one remembers you anymore is just like, damn. Okay, I want to talk about the song Man or Muppet. Now I'm at that. I know I've skipped through like most of the plot of this, but I think that's okay. Man or a Muppet is actually my personal favorite of the Muppet songs. I mean, Rainbow Connection, which is also in this movie, does get me the most emotional. I didn't like cry or anything this time because like I knew it was in the movie, I knew it was coming. I probably did the first time I watched it though, I just don't remember. But Man or Muppet, it's okay. I need to actually Google if this thing got like a Grammy or something or not. That's bothering me a lot, actually. I need to know. Oh, and I still have the list of Muppet movies. Oh wait, hold on. Okay, sorry, there's an ad playing. I have Letterboxd open from earlier and I was worried if that was in here. One sec. Man or Muppet, did it win an Oscar? Who wrote it anyway? It does not. Okay, it was nominated. No, I think it did win. Yeah, okay. It won the Oscar for Best Original Song in 2012. Wow, the first time Muppet films won an Academy Award. I really would have thought like the original Muppet movie would have gotten a reward for its soundtrack. Anyway, yeah, Man or Muppet won the award as it deserves. It's perfect in that character-wise, you know, it works with the characters and stuff of, like I said, Walter and Gary having the same arc of like, are you going to be a human? Are you going to be a Muppet? I mean, it simplifies it down to like, you know, and then going on their separate paths of like Walter choosing to be a Muppet. And I feel like Walter was kind of struggling with it less though. It was more, I feel like for him it was more about like a self-confidence and like putting the Muppets on a pedestal. I feel like he made that choice, you know, earlier in the movie, but for Gary, he's kind of the main one going for that of does he choose Mary or does he choose Walter, because he keeps putting Mary off and then he ends up choosing Mary, and then together they end up going back to the Muppets and stuff. And then they have, I like that both of them get like their own counterpart for the Man or Muppet thing of Gary gets his own little Muppet version or whatever. But the reason I was like cracking up at the beginning of this movie, and it felt like a jump scare to me too, and I don't even remember his name because of all the stupid memes. I feel a little bad with that. There's a part, it's like a jump scare to me where it gets to Walter's verse and he's in the room with the mirrors or whatever and he's looking in a mirror and then fucking Sheldon from Sheldon from The Big Bang Theory shows up, which means that he's basically like Walter's human son. It's nothing against the actor too. I think his name's Jim Parsons, if I remember right. You know, I'm fine with him as an actor or whatever. I'm sorry, I can never take him seriously because he's just so associated on the internet with, and I have never watched a single fucking episode of The Big Bang Theory, but that's like the thing he's associated with, kind of like the guy that plays Walter White, you know, he's like Walter White in the collective consciousness now or whatever, or like Saul from Better Call Saul, you know. So it's just it felt it makes sense. I think him being Walter's like human soda or whatever is the best way to put it. I'm sorry, I'm still thinking about that. Like, I didn't care about that because I didn't know about the Big Bang Theory or much the internet or whatever when I was younger and I originally watched this, but like now that I'm rewatching it, I'm just like, oh yeah, that's a thing. And it's funny because I only know him really with that character, but voice wise, because he gets to sing in this, I associate him actually with O from the movie Home, the little like purple alien dude or whatever. But yeah, I forgot he was in this. He does a good job though. But my favorite part of the song, like song wise, but also, you know how it's shot like a music video or like a fantasy sequence and stuff, which I thought in universe it was a fantasy sequence, even though Gary's like walking around town and he's in these locations. For Walter it feels more like a fantasy sequence, but no, then Gary mentions later on in the movie of like, yeah, I just did this whole thing where I, you know, chose to be a man, I chose you, Mary, or whatever. So that was real, that was happening. But I love the part where it is like a fantasy sequence though of they're in the white void with the double pianos and everyone's wearing like the white tuxedos. It's like a really cool little bit anyway. It like looks cool, but it just really adds to it and stuff. Like, it's a short little song, but it's sung so like seriously and with so much like you know, like it's a bit silly and it's like treated as like a fantasy sequence and stuff, but you know, the characters are taking it seriously. It's like it's an important song for like what's happening in the movie and stuff. It's like the big number, you know. So I'm so happy it got that Oscar. It's great song. Okay, I talked about them kidnapping Jack Black and then I want him on it. Sorry, I wrote notes about that as I was watching of like, I want Jack Black to be a Muppet Show host. I was reading on Letterboxd about this movie, by the way, and they said something about like, oh, they kidnapped Steve from the Minecraft movie. Oh, then they start the telethon. It is so cool to see, you know, I'm used to the Muppet intro, you know, with the song, the episodes from the 70s, you know, they filmed it in the 70s, so like obviously the cameras and stuff, you know, when you watch something older and you watch something now and it looks visually like completely different because of like the cameras and stuff, where you can like tell if something's new or old for the most part. Not even just like the way it's shot or filters or anything, you know. So seeing the Muppet intro in like modern cameras and everything, you know, and it's like movie budget stuff, it's really cool, you know. And like the last time I watched this movie, I hadn't watched the Muppet Show, by the way. I think this is probably my second or third time I've seen this. I think I'm pretty sure I saw it in theaters because this came out when I was like 10, and now I'm not 10. I've probably seen it sometime between here and now, and then, you know, seeing it now. But, you know, having watched the Muppet Show, I think especially watching the Muppet Show, even a couple episodes definitely kind of helps with this movie, I think, just kind of hitting more and stuff besides all the little references and whatever. But also, you know, I've watched some of the other Muppet movies and stuff, so it's kind of made me a fan. So I think it does hit harder because of that now. There's a hobo character. I know who the actor is. I cannot remember his name right now. There's a character named Hobo Joe. I thought he was kind of funny. He's only in the movie for like a couple of minutes. He's just happy to be. He's like their one audience member during the telethon before everyone starts showing up. And he takes people's money. He charges them $5 per seat. And then there's a bunch of Muppet hobo characters that also show up for some reason, but he basically makes jokes where they're saying like, damn, no one came to our telethon, and Hobo Joe's like, hey, I'm here, I'm so happy to watch this. I like how he sings along with the intro too, and he actually sings it pretty well. The audience being completely stone-faced during Fozzie's segment is me honest. Okay, I don't even know if it's like a hot take, 'cause I feel like it's supposed to be the point of the character, but Fozzie I've never found him funny. I don't just mean like the little jokes that he tells of his like stand-up thing, which I think is supposed to not be in universe funny anyway, because you know the two old guys are always making fun of him. But even outside of that, I've just never really cared for Fozzie. I just never really found him funny. I don't even really find him like. I thought that I would have, finding him maybe even a little endearing or whatever, but no, I don't like hate him as a character or anything. Like Miss Piggy was someone that was like annoying to me, but like Fozzie, he's just kind of there. I don't know, because I know that it's like him, Kermit, Gonzo, Piggy. They're like the main like five, probably also Rolf and Scooter, I guess. They're like the main ones for the Muppets. Like whenever, like even to the point where you ever see like fake like Muppet fan castings and things of, you know, oh, if they did like this movie and who would you assign for the Muppets, it's always those characters, which there's nothing wrong with that, you know. They're all shoot. All right, I'm back. I shouldn't get interrupted again, but anyway, they're all good characters. But it's like, I want to see other Muppets too. Like, I spent a lot of time looking in the background of this movie. I even noticed Kermit's nephew Robin, but he looked like he was kind of a different shade of green. I thought that was kind of interesting. It was kind of hard to spot him too because he's so small. I think he was like on top of another character or something. Like, I mean, I'm not saying I know like every Muppet character in existence or stuff. I have kind of wanted to kind of just look through like a wiki and look at like who are some of the most obscure Muppets. There's like a meme with the Gary Kawika ventriloquist dummy. I think it's in the Tonight Show, or not the Tonight Show, the Muppets Tonight. So like weird stuff like that. Okay, but let me get back to this. There's a part where Beaker has an axe. There's like during the telethon thing, there's like a barbershop quartet part. It kind of reminded me, it's just like a quick little joke where he's holding up an axe and everyone stares at him and then he has to like pick up like a different object or whatever. There's this one SNL skit where I think Bill Hader's usually in them, of these like creepy animatronic robots where like a ride gets stuck down and sometimes they have weapons or whatever, and it kind of reminded me of that a little bit. Okay, and then there's this, we get another song, sort of. It's the Chickens, and they're singing the song Forget You, and it was funny hearing that because I've been playing a lot of Just Dance lately. Like that's like my exercise game for the past year, and that song's on Just Dance 3, and I remember when I danced to it for the first time a while, like last year or something. I was like, why do I know this song so much? Why does it specifically feel like something from like the 2010s, I guess? And then I remembered like, oh, from this movie. Not that it was like specifically made from this movie, but like this is where I associate the song from. So as soon as I heard it again, it was like kind of nostalgic for me. Sorry, I have to like scroll through my notes because some of them are like talking points I already covered towards the beginning, because I usually write these either as like they pop into my head or like as things are happening in the movie. So there's this really cute part where Kermit and Miss Piggy finally get back together, where it's revealed that they still each have the half of their wedding photo. The thing is, if they get married in the Muppets in Manhattan movie, does this mean, since they have the photos and stuff, that their wedding was legal? I always wondered about that, because I think in the plot it was like part of the story that they got married, but I feel like in the Muppet canon it's kind of treated as if they like legally got married. I don't know, because they basically act like they're divorced sometimes in the series, not just as like exes, like they're not romantically together, but specifically like they're divorced. It kind of, especially in this one, because it's like Kermit lives at their house alone and stuff at the beginning of this movie. It's like this big house. It literally has the initials K and P on the door, and then later on, like after that, Miss Piggy, when they see each other again, mentions of like, I built that house from the ground up so we can raise tadpoles together, and Kermit's like, yeah, I know, I'm still living in that house or whatever, you know. And just the way they act in this, but I like how during that part she because her whole thing is tells him like, oh, you're always saying we this, we that, why don't you ever say I need you? And then, I mean, he does here, but I liked the line about like, maybe you don't need the whole world to love you, maybe just one person. I thought that was like really romantic, actually. I think it just, Kermit's lines, because he sounds so genuine and the things he says just make them, you know, believable, especially when it's stuff like this. And then we get Rainbow Connection, which I find interesting. I thought it was actually going to be a duet between Kermit and Miss Piggy, but I'm glad that it was all the Muppets, because the movie treats it that way, as like, oh, they're gonna have like a little duet or something, and then Rainbow Connection plays, and it does start that way. It starts with Kermit and then Miss Piggy, but they don't do the whole song like that, and then all the other Muppets come up. But anyway, it's such a sweet song. It's like the big thing I remember from the Muppet movie. That's like the iconic Muppet song, you know. I just love the part, both like story-wise and music-wise, where this entire movie Animal hasn't been allowed to drum. At first he mentions it's like because of Jack Black, and I was confused about that because Jack Black isn't even in the movie at that point. But then he finally gets his drumsticks back. I think it's like an internal thing for him of like deciding not to drum. Like he even plays the triangle a couple times, but no, he finally gets to drum during that. And then once just the drum part is good, and then the rest of the like electric teeth band, I think that's what they're called, join in to like everyone singing, and then it's just really cool, honestly. And then Walter is the final act because they need to win the last of the money or something. And then before that happens, Gary gives Walter this little speech about how he like belongs with the Muppets. There was one line that I related to with that. It was like right before he says the part about like growing up or whatever, but I cannot remember what it is, and I didn't have time to write it down. But that little speech was nice, and it kind of finishes off their story together and stuff. We already talked about Walter's whistling thing, but it's like a cool part of the movie. And it is like a little expected of like, you know, he has to prove to himself to be like part of the Muppets, and he's, you know, he's the main character, he's the one that saves the day and stuff. That's what's interesting, where like I've heard that he's in Muppets Most Wanted, but he's like not the main character anymore, or like not as important because Kermit's the main character. But I actually like that, because this is like his introduction movie. He's the main character, he joins the Muppets, and then from there, you know, it's not like there's like a single main character of the Muppets. They're just that's the cool thing with them, there's so many of them. I mean, I did mention like Kermit's the face of the Muppets, and there's like 5 or 6 other Muppets that are like regular characters and stuff, but there's so many that just like pop up in the background or doing other things, you know. They're like a collective group, so it kind of does feel like Walter's joining the Muppets by making it so that he's part of that group, like he's still there no matter what, even if he's not like on screen or anything. Because I'm assuming he's gonna have some kind of role doing something like as a side character in the next movie. But it would be kind of weird if like you introduce him here and then he becomes like part of the main like 5 or whatever, because it's not really his thing, you know. That would be a bit much. I don't think he'd be able. It would be enjoyable. I like him as a character, but I don't think it would be enjoyable to have him as like a regular character, if I'm honest, even though I'd love to see more of him. He's just so human, but you know, like he's just so normal, I should say, that there isn't really anything that makes him stand out enough to be like a regular character. He's not like funny or anything. He's just a little guy. I mean, I love that he's just a little guy. It almost reminds me of like Bert and Ernie in a way, but you know, he's just so normal compared to everyone else that it doesn't really make him stand out as much. And then they do this thing where they're technically like $1 off from reaching their thing, and then it's revealed where it does kind of feel like bullshit a little bit of like, oh, for the drama, you know, that they lose because of the villain shenanigans, but then it's revealed that the number was wrong anyway and they weren't like close to hitting the amount. But I think I remember when I was little and I originally watched the movie, I was so pissed of that. I'm like, are you kidding me? They're like $1 away and the villain ruins it for them. They could have gotten their studio. I almost expected during my first viewing that like the people in the audience, it was going to be one of those things of like the crowd saves the main character, of like the people in the studio do something that gets the villain to like give in or whatever. you know, because sometimes that happens with like kids movies and stuff specifically, but instead it's like they do lose the theater and they're sad about that, and Kermit gives them a speech of like, hey, as long as we're together it's okay, we can build from the ground up. So, but then it's really sweet, and it matches with the message of the movie of they go outside and all their fans are there, and it's kind of like the telethon is less about saving their theater in a way, even though the Muppets aren't aware of it at the time, and more just reminding people they exist. I like that there's like cutaways in the movie where it shows audiences at home watching and smiling, watching the telethon, you know, like it reminds people that like the Muppets existed. And that's kind of the thing with this movie too, and its role of like it reintroduces the Muppets to the world, and they go from being kind of a little forgotten. I mean, not forgotten by everyone obviously, but you know, like they haven't made like a new thing in a while, and then they're back like in the public consciousness and stuff. And even then, like this movie got a sequel like 3 years later, and then there's been like nothing else. But there's I've noticed there's stuff on like the Disney YouTube channel or whatever. They have like the Muppets Haunted Mansion thing, which I thought was pretty cool, like smaller things. And then the like the Muppet ABC show, but you know, it's not like the time gap between, you know, like Muppets in Space and this, where there's just like almost nothing, you know. I mean there still should have been absolutely more, because this was supposed to be like the big Muppet revival. It's like the whole point of this movie. But hey, we got like at least 2 films in the past like 15 years. The one thing that kind of kills me though is, okay, it's like a big meaningful moment when the Muppets go outside and it shows the crowd. There's a freaking giant billboard of Cars 2 that's just there, and it's like not, it's like it becomes the central focus, and it's like, this is the big moment for the Muppets. Why is the Cars 2 thing here? It's like a jump scare or something. It kind of ruins the moment for me just a little bit. And I went on Letterboxd wondering if like other people were wondering about that too, and like yeah, I mean, it's like a difference to me of like, you know, in a movie when they go out in Times Square and there's always like ads and, you know, whatever, it's like, okay, cool, you expect that, or like whatever. But in this moment, it's just Cars 2. Actually, I'm gonna be honest, Cars 2 is my favorite of the Cars franchise, so I guess I can't be too mad at it. I've never liked the original Cars. Even when I was younger, there was just something about it I didn't like. I don't know. I think maybe it didn't feel whimsical enough for me. But, and that's not the point of the movie. I liked Cars 2. A lot of people don't like Cars 2. I like Cars 2 because it's like a goofy, fun, like spy movie, but it still has the Cars character. I feel like I should, based on how I view sequels and stuff, that I shouldn't like Cars 2, but I do, and it's fun, and I still haven't seen the third Cars movie. It's kind of the way I view Shrek, except I do like the original Shrek, but I like Shrek 2 more. Shrek 2 is actually, unironically, one of my favorite movies. Anyway, okay, we're not here to talk about Shrek or Cars. But yeah, Walter completes his character arc of becoming a Muppet. And then I thought it was a little, oh no, never mind, it doesn't happen before the credits, because they do like a final song, the Life's a Happy Song, you know, and I feel like that should be cheesy with the way it ends, but like it's the Muppets, so instead it comes out sweet. And then Mary and Gary become like engaged or whatever, and then in the credits you find out they get the Muppet Theater back. They have like a newspaper thing. I think that's kind of nice, because inevitably somehow this had to end with them getting the theater back, not just because that was like the big thing with the movie, and you need to have a good ending. I was gonna say, has there been a Muppet movie that hasn't had a good ending, but I don't remember. But also because, you know, that sets it up in like the Muppets canon of like in this one I know the movies don't connect with each other or anything, except maybe a little bit. This one is like a bit, you know, referencing things and whatever, but that way it's like they have their theater back, so you know, if they inevitably make the Muppet Show again, which I hope they do, they can use the theaters. The Muppets, they need their Muppet theater and stuff. But yeah, that's the movie. It's interesting how my opinion of it's like changed over the years, where originally I loved it, and then the second time I liked it a bit less. I don't know. I think for me it was because I never watched the Muppet Show or anything, and this movie is so much, I mean it is about reintroducing the Muppets to the world and stuff, so like story-wise it makes sense, but it's so much based on like nostalgia and like, hey, remember the Muppet Show and stuff, that like if you haven't watched the Muppet Show or whatever, or like this is your introduction to characters or something, I feel like it just kind of feels like, okay, we get it about the nostalgia thing and stuff. But then watching it now, I mean, besides the fact that I get all their references to the Muppet Show and whatever, it's fun. It's genuinely just really fun. Because like I said, most of the Muppet movies are, I mean, there are ones with like original like plots and stuff. You know, but there's a couple of them that are like the Muppet Treasure Island or Christmas Carols, where they're like adaptations and stuff. I think Manhattan, yeah, the space one, and the Caper. I mean, those are like all original storylines and stuff about the Muppets and whatever. But this is nice, you know, the Muppets are themselves and they're doing things, and the humans like aren't as iconic as past humans. I mean, I don't think you can top Michael Caine's performance in A Christmas Carol, and Tim Curry is so fun. I know there's other humans too. Like I liked in the Muppet Caper that Diana Rigg was like this fashion designer that ends up being the victim of the crime that the Muppets are trying to solve and stuff. And there's like a billion people that like cameo in these and whatever. I know I'm not remembering other important humans off the top of my head. But yeah, Mary and Gary are like kind of a little like bland. They're kind of just there, but like, and they don't. Gary's the one with the character growth. Mary's the one that's kind of just there and stuff. But you know, they work for this type of movie of like. I think for this, you just kind of needed human characters, but we're like normal. You know, like normal just people or whatever, because the focus is supposed to be on Walter and the Muppets. But then they're both also essential for like Walter's character growth and stuff. Like he wouldn't really work as a character. I mean, having him be a Muppet fanboy and stuff is fine, but this whole thing of like trying to find his place in the world and his relationship with his brother like wouldn't work without these characters. And it is always kind of fun too, just watching humans interact with the Muppets and stuff. But the actors, like, gosh darn it, they do such a good job at these characters and their singing and stuff that it makes it really fun anyway, that like I don't mind. Like if they weren't trying this hard, it would have just been like these characters are kind of forgettable, but I like them in this story. And then of course the Muppets are there. Like I mentioned, I liked Kermit and Piggy getting their stuff together, and we get to see other Muppets as well. I like the scenes where they have a lot of Muppets on screen, like during Kermit's speech of like, hey guys, we lost the theater, but we're together, so it's fine, we're a family and stuff. And just, I should have paused and looked at all the characters, because I think it's really cool. I keep wondering about the blue one though. In the top right corner, there's like this big blue guy, and I swear I don't remember him. But then again, there's probably characters that are from like stuff like Muppets Tonight that I just wouldn't know, you know. And I like Walter too. He's just a little guy. I think he's like fun to have as a main character, as like a new Muppet, but also he's like the audience stand-in of like the people that adore the Muppets, and they're like, where are the Muppets and stuff. But yeah, overall just a fun movie. It's got some good songs. Oh, the one that Kermit sings, the Pictures in My Head or whatever, that's also really good. I think that's like I feel like I have to look up the Muppets. Let me look up the soundtrack for this movie real quick. Man or Muppet is a 2011 from the musical comedy. Give me a minute, please. Music. Muppets soundtrack. Alright, let me take a peek. Yeah, of course the Muppet Show theme is good. Life's a Happy Song. Yeah, Pictures in My Head was really good. Rainbow Connection is of course iconic. They have a bunch of other ones too, like We Built This City, and like the Forget You, you know. I forgot they freaking have Smells Like Teen Spirit. That's the one, the Barbershop Quartet. That was kind of funny. But yeah, Man or Muppet even has its own Wikipedia page, so there you go. And then the which it's funny because like that's not, apparently it was made for an Italian show. It's not even from the Muppets, but it's so associated with the Muppets, you know. But yeah, there's a mix of like regular songs in here, some Muppet songs. I think Man or Muppet and Rainbow Connection are like the highlights, though. I have heard, however, there are more original songs for the sequel, and my friend, I want to read you exactly what my friend said about those songs. Let me see. Where is it? Yeah, my friend said the songs that most wanted, all bangers that are most of the time worming the way into his head. He specifically listed the songs, here, I'll just read the sentence to you. We're doing a sequel, the interrogation song, I'm Number One, The Big House, like, damn, and all caps. They're all so good. So there's at least 4, you know, that are apparently bangers, so I gotta get on that. But besides that, I'm looking forward to it. I feel like it'll probably be maybe the same comedy style as this, but less, like, wholesome and stuff. I mean, the stuff that happens to Kermit, from what I've heard, yeah. But I'm curious about that one anyway, because you got, like, the evil Kermit and stuff. Tina Fey plays one of the main characters. I feel like I remember her in the movie. Maybe I have seen it. I feel like I can at least remember the stuff of her, like, talking to Kermit, but I can't remember anything else. Anyway, I'm gonna go watch that. But yeah, this movie is good. I actually was so close to buying it on DVD one time. I went to a little, like, thrift store, and this movie was there on DVD, and I almost bought it, and I should have. I think it's good enough where I could buy this on DVD. I don't say that about every movie, but, you know, it's one that I could keep watching. Not, like, every year or whatever, but I feel like every couple of years I could watch. It's just, like, a good, fun, like, wholesome. It's, like, a very wholesome movie. You know, I think the Muppets are always fun. All right, that's that. And on to the sequel. See you then.